Hi, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Tesla, and today I'm going to show you how to make this stunning 3D epoxy flower. To save some time in this video, I went ahead and I pre-mixed my resin, and this mold holds about 75 milliliters of resin, so I'm just going to go ahead and begin by pouring my resin into the mold. And I will have all the materials that I use for this video linked down below, so if anybody's interested, all of that information will be down there for you. And next, I'm going to go ahead and let that resin sit for a moment while I mix up some white resin. And I like to let my resin sit for a minute just to allow some air bubbles to come to the surface. So while we wait for that, we'll go ahead and mix up a little bit of white. So I'm just taking some of my clear resin here in a smaller cup, and I'll be adding some mica powder and alcohol ink to that. And the mica powder I'm using is the Periwinkle Glow by Arteza, and it adds a really beautiful blue sheen to the finished product. So when you're mixing pigment in with resin, you want to make sure that you're thoroughly incorporating all of that pigment into your resin, scraping both the sides and the bottom of your container. And this white isn't completely opaque, it's still a little bit translucent, but it's going to work just fine for this project. And now it's time to destroy these air bubbles using my heat gun. And I'm just using the heat gun on the higher setting, keeping about 3 or 4 inches away from the surface of my resin and popping all of those bubbles that have risen to the surface. And now it's time to make our flower. And I've been really trying to get a red and orange flower, so I'm hoping that this technique is going to turn out better than the ones that I tried previously, which were a little bit of a disaster. So I'm starting out by just laying some yellow down in the center of my coaster. And then next I'll go around that center with my red. Pose as high as always. And I'm really hoping to get some cool combinations in the middle where I get a little bit of orange. I'm really curious to see how these turn out. I decided to use a popsicle stick to sort of encourage that blending between the orange and the yellow. And if you're liking this video so far, please don't forget to give it a like. It not only helps out my channel a whole lot, but it also lets me know that I'm making content that you want to see from me. So next I'm going to start to make my petals, and I'm just using the popsicle stick. As you can see, I kind of wiped off the resin that was on the bottom of the stick, but I'm going to use the resin that's on the top of the popsicle stick to start making some of these petals. For this outer layer of petals, I really want them to be white without any color inside of them. And I'm also doing my best to get them pretty close to the edge of the mold, but I don't want the resin, the colored resin, to actually touch the outside of the mold, because I found that sometimes when the resin touches the sides of the mold, it can start to stick to the mold and it doesn't really shrink into the center as nicely. So just right up as close as I can get without touching. And your petals don't have to be completely perfect or completely symmetrical. Often in nature, the most beautiful flowers or faces are not completely perfect. They're not completely symmetrical, at least in my opinion. And Poe agrees, right, Poe? And then moving right along to these inner petals, I think I'll probably end up doing 3, possibly 4 of these rows of petals. I think that should be a good amount. Like I mentioned before, I have been working on some multicolored flowers lately, and especially this red and yellow combination. And I've tried a couple different ways that did not turn out so great, but I'm really hoping that this one is the winner. I also do have a lot of other resin tutorials here on YouTube, so if you'd like to see more from me, make sure to check out my channel when you're done with this video. And after I've got my petals, I'm going to go ahead and just make a little swirl in the center of this coaster, and then I'm going to cover that up and let it cure completely. And typically it takes about 24 hours for resin to cure completely, but check the resin that you're working with. So after 24 hours, this is how the back of this piece is looking so far, and I'm so excited. I feel like these colors have blended out together really beautifully. I'm loving that I can see this really pretty blue sheen from the mica powder. So I'm going to go ahead and do a layer of black on the back of this coaster. I went ahead and mixed up about 25 milliliters of resin, and I added some black alcohol into that, and I'm just going to go ahead and pour some of this onto the back of my coaster. I'm just going to go ahead and spread it around a little bit, just tilting it slightly. It's a little difficult because I was filming with one hand and trying to pour with the other, so I did get some drips, but that is okay. That's why I've got my wax paper down, and thankfully it's not going to stick to the mold either. Alright, so I let the piece set up for 24 hours. It's really nice and cured, totally solid, and let's go ahead and pop it out of the mold and see how it turned out. It's looking really neat just from the back of it, so I'm really excited to see how it turned out. Oh wow. Look at that. There's so much depth and dimension to this one. Oh, I absolutely love this. And as always, I will take some shots in the natural light so you can see it a little bit better, but this is gorgeous. You really get that pretty blue sheen from the mica powder as well. I love how the yellow in here really blended out into orange and then red with these white outer petals. I think this is so beautiful. Let me know what you think of this project down below in the comments, and as always, I will have all the materials that I used for this project linked down there for you. So if anybody is wanting to try this project for themselves, all of that information will be down there for you. As always, thank you so much for watching this video, especially if you made it all the way to the end of the video. And if you did make it all the way to the end, leave me some sort of food emoji in the comments just to confuse anyone who hasn't made it this far. I'd also like to tell you guys that I recently made a Instagram under the same name, Tesla, with a 3 for the E, and I thought that that would be a great place for us to be able to talk back and forth, for you to ask me questions, and also for you to send me photos of your work. So if you're interested in daily posts from me and a little bit more about my personal life, make sure to follow me there, and I will link that down below as well. As always, friends, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. I really appreciate you giving me some of your time, and I really hope that this video inspires you to make something of your own today. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!